Greetings, gamers, and welcome to episode 2 of Rested XP. It's a podcast about online gamers, the community, mental health, relationships, issues that you guys deal with. My name's Brad Archer, and I am ready to go. You might also know me as Sharku around the interwebs. It is currently 2:13 p.m. Eastern Time. It is August 16th, 2020. We are doing a live show, ready to go. We've got just me and one other co-host this week. Joining me, as always, is the true villain, MAnny, all the way from
Toronto, Canada.
North America, the Maple Leaf State. I don't know why I don't know why I keep making that joke. How you doing, MAnny?
I'm doing all right. As we're going to be talking about today, trying to make the best of things. And honestly, this week I had like a bit of a setback, but...
Was it merely a setback? Sorry, this is my other podcast.
Everything is merely a setback if you look at it the right way. So yes, I'm going to say it was merely a setback.
What was your mere setback?
Oh, okay. We're gonna go into it for the show. So let's introduce the topic of the show.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what we're doing. Before we get to the topic of the show first, I want to make a couple quick announcements, just right up top, get them out of the way. First of all, we're a pretty new show. We've got a very strong and passionate fan base that's forming. We love you guys. Chat room, you guys are fantastic. And we also, if you can't ever join us live, first of all, you can try to join us live. We record on Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/restedxpcast. If you can find us there, that's great. We love to have you. If you can't make it to that live chat room to hang out, we've always got our Discord that you can join. That is our 24-hour chat room. You can jump in there and talk about whatever you want to, especially things that relate to life as an online gamer in the gaming community. There are rooms in there for you to talk about maybe particular issues that you might be having, a safe space to be able to get some support. There are places just to talk about games. Maybe you can even find a group of people that are playing a game that you like to play and build a new team or something that way. So check us out there. You can find that both on our Twitch site. We have a link. We also have a link on it's pinned to our Twitter, which is at SetbackCast on Twitter. So, what am I talking about? It's at RestedXPcast. What? You got me all hung up on the whole setback thing. So yeah, check those things out. This is a really exciting project for us. We want to make sure that we can reach as many people as possible, and it's you guys that are going to help us with that. And on that note, we want to add kind of a little extra push to those of you out there. What the design of this show isn't just to have us sitting here talking about stuff that, we find important. Yeah, we're definitely going to be doing that. But we also want you guys to be able to make your mark on the show. So check out our Twitter and our Discord particularly. We have places in the Discord where you can add to, like, we try to do icebreakers every show. If there's something goofy about us that you just want to know or want us to talk about something at the beginning of the show or have an idea for a silly game for us to play, give us an idea. We'd love to be able to do that. Also, with our main topics, one thing we really want to be able to do is to kind of help folks out there with problems, or maybe just something that they have, a struggle that they have, and they're like, you know what, I've been really struggling with this, or I've noticed that this is really difficult for me. Today we're going to kind of be talking about one of my struggles, so you guys will sort of get the idea. But if there's anything that's going on in your life that you want to share with the community, that you want us to be able to discuss on the show, maybe give you some amateur advice, some friendly advice about it, or anything like that. It could be a relationship issue that you have. It could be struggles with depression or mental illness. It could be just a really bad night of raiding and you don't know how to handle your group or something like that in a video game. It's anything like that. Please feel free to either send us an email, post something to the Discord, or direct message us in Discord or Twitter or something like that, we'd be happy to do that. So we want to just make sure that you guys understand that that is open for you guys, and we want to include you as much as we can with that. So
I do want to interject one thing.
yeah, please do.
Because of the nature of what we're talking about, sometimes people do want some anonymity. So obviously you can direct message if you don't want to discuss things in open forum.
Yes.
But you can also create a dummy account or throwaway account for Discord and join and speak with anonymity. Sometimes it helps to hear from people without really having it be putting yourself out there. So feel free to do that. I know people have taken the time to actually reach out to us already about things under the condition of anonymity, and like we do appreciate that. We are going to respect respect that. And if you're sending in the emails like we've already received, or sending DMs, unless you say otherwise, we are going to respect your privacy and keep your name out of the conversation while still trying to share your message and what you're trying to convey.
Exactly. So if you'd like for us to share your name, make sure you say something. So, feel free to use my name if you'd like. And we can always reach back in touch with you through whatever forum that you have reached us. So if we want to say, hey, we're going to talk about this on the show or something like that. But yeah, we're not going to necessarily be disclosing names on the show unless you ask us to. I think this is the easiest way to do that, just to protect people's privacy and anonymity. Especially like Manny was saying, with the nature of the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Some things don't necessarily want it spread all over the internet and broadcast to the entire world. I understand that. I can get with that for sure. Cool. Anything else? Any other announcements you have show related, Manny? You didn't write anything in the show notes, so I'm assuming no.
No, we're good. We're good.
Then I want to go ahead and move on to our icebreaker for the day. I wasn't feeling very creative today with icebreakers, so I just decided that you and I are going to discuss. We're going to rank our top 3 favorite video games of all time, but we have to say why. Like, doesn't have to be like this is the most fun video game or whatever. We have to talk about why we rank them in that way, because a lot of people have different ranks. Yeah,
you put this in, and I have to ask: can I group a series of games in together?
No, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say I have to pick individual games.
All right.
So like we're not talking expansions, right? So World of Warcraft can include all the expansions.
Yeah,
but
I can't say.
But
like
you can't say
Diablo.
You can't say Final.
Like series.
Final Fantasy, right? Or Diablo, as it like expansions can be part of the same game, but yeah, separate titles. They have to. They're gonna they gotta be separated, and they don't necessarily have to be ranked 3, 2, 1. We're talking top 3 games. So I'll start with one of my top 3 games. I'm gonna say the original Zelda, the very first Zelda game that came out on Nintendo, is definitely up there, if not the top game for me, up there in the top 3, and primarily because of how it kind of broke open the video game world of what you can do with video games. Like, it was really the first action adventure RPG in a video game format. It proved that games could be something that you could spend time on, right? It's not just something you turn on and then turn off. And they created the concept of a save point and everything very poorly. It was really hard. I remember, like, originally you had to like hold the select and start button on the console and then turn it off. It was, I don't even remember how you had to do to save the game. But yeah, that's my favorite. It's just being able to find all the weapons, like the concept of gear was invented with Zelda, in a sense. And just like, maybe not invented, but mastered for sure, in a game. So I guess that was like 1985 or something. I don't know, but the original Zelda, like way back. That's my first one.
All right. I'm gonna put an additional constraint on myself that I'm not going to go with games that you have already named.
Okay, me
So I
too.
will remove Zelda from mine.
Okay.
Uh, I am gonna go with Mass Effect 2 to represent the Mass Effect series.
Yeah, that's I think
It,
my favorite Mass Effect as well.
yeah, it was a magnum opus. So much great storytelling, characters that I cared about that you had to like play through to make sure that they actually stayed alive. Um, it is one of the series where I like bought the collector's edition and the art book and
Yeah.
actually really dug into the lore, reading all the like supplementary material. Like that was such a big game for me. So Mass Effect 2 representing that series is a phenomenal game that I will say that because I'm lucky that I haven't played Andromeda, still remains like a series that I hold in high esteem.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that game. I don't know if I ever finished 3, and I definitely didn't play Andromeda. I got Andromeda for free because I had a friend that worked at EA, and he's
Mm.
like, and it did not do well, and he was like, "We're literally giving it away. What's your email address? I'll send you a download." Um, and I don't think I've ever played it. And I didn't finish 3, but I really liked, like they did. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. It's
I
such a
was
good game.
poring over like how Andromeda was being developed. I know like development stories of that because I was so hyped to get a new entry into it, and I never played it because I knew what the horror stories were about it. It's just it's unfortunate. All
Yeah,
right, so what's
yeah.
your
All right.
second entry?
I'm gonna go with Final Fantasy VII. I know I'm that guy, but the reason is because Final Fantasy VII was my introduction into video game RPGs and RPGs in general. Really, I never really played any games like that. I didn't even really know they existed. At that point, I was pretty much like Mario Kart and Star Fox and like that kind of stuff, just action games. But I remember going over to a friend of mine's house, and he had this game, and I sat there for hours just watching him play. He finally let me start my own save file on his, and I played a little bit, and I was like, "This is awesome." But I mean, I would honestly just spend hours over at his house watching him play until I finally got a PlayStation a few years later and played through it myself. But just the story, and for me, it was one of the first games that had such an elaborate story, that was so effective.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it was a
Yeah.
story that I was
I
connected
know
to.
exactly what you mean because Final Fantasy VI was what you was how you
Right.
were experiencing Final Fantasy VII. That's pretty much how I experienced Final Fantasy VI.
Right. And that's a lot of people. It's like Final Fantasy 3 or 6, right? Shoe Boots, I think, is 5/2. They
He
really,
loves the job
yeah,
system.
they messed up the numbers when Final
Five
Fantasy.
actually didn't come out to US.
So wait, I'm thinking 4 then.
Yeah,
4 slash 2.
they had this weird thing where they were skipping them every other one.
Right. Some of them just came out in Japan and we never got. And you can play them now. They have them on like DS
And for the
stuff.
dumbest reasons, they were like, "This is too hard for North American audiences."
It's like it's
That's
not
one of the
the.
reasons we didn't get certain Final
Not
Fantasy
the.
installments because they're like, Americans are dumb.
Yeah, basically. I'm not going to argue too much. I'm kind of dumb. So yeah, but yeah, that's my biggest reason. Like just that introduction. I remember I had a Nintendo 64, or no, I had just a Super Nintendo at that point, and my buddy that had that game had, it was some SquareSoft game. It wasn't Chrono Trigger. I would remember that, and it wasn't another Final Fantasy, but it was like something like that. That was an RPG, and I played
Secret
that.
of Mana.
It might have been that. I don't know, but I played the heck out of it, and I was jealous because I wanted to play. I really just wanted to play Final Fantasy because what I was watching him play.
Uh,
But yeah, to this day, that's my. I have like 50 playthroughs of that game. Maybe I might be more than that.
okay.
And I can't wait for the new one. the new one came out, and I can't wait for it to like continue to release. Anyway, all right, your turn. We're taking a long time on this. This is all right.
Okay. So my second installment, because you kind of mentioned it, so I just want to quickly throw it in, is Chrono Trigger. That to me is what I consider nerd tax. Anytime any version has ever come out, I own it. I will buy it. I just love the game. I love the characters. Frog for life. He was like the man for me. Played through so many different times trying to get all the different endings. They did the remake where they added in cinematics, and I was like, I gotta play that. I even love Chrono Cross. I know that like people malign it, but like I thought the battle system was great. I think that it ended poorly, but in my mind, it's almost like a side story sort of thing of like, let's get Scala back. And the soundtrack. Oh my goodness, I love the soundtrack. I like that game is so much to me. So Chrono Cross was a defining game. Chrono Trigger defined me. So Chrono Trigger for sure is like one of my big games.
It's such a good game.
Your last intro.
I gotta go with WoW, World of Warcraft. I probably stole yours.
No. I promised that I would not mention ones that you've mentioned.
I know.
And I wasn't going to mention WoW actually.
Yeah.
The obvious answer.
Well, it is, and that's what I had to mention it, because I was like, if you choose not to mention it, then we have to delete this show, because there's no way a top 3 video game list with I have 2 World of Warcraft podcasts that I've been on. I have this show that's about video gaming. I've played the game since it basically came out. I played like a year after it came out, started in vanilla. I have been playing it for 15 years, and it's an excellent video game. Just an absolutely excellent game. The best MMO that's ever come out, and we'll see if it ever gets knocked off that pedestal, but I don't think it ever will be. It's going to be sort of like Zelda for me. Like, even though there are other Zelda games that I think are better, more fun to play than the first one, that first one's always going to have the top spot because of everything.
I would have thrown Ocarina of Time in there. Like, I played earlier ones. I think Ocarina of Time is seminal, but
that's
my last.
Yeah. There you go. So World of Warcraft.
Yeah, my last entry is actually something I love, even though one of the sequels to it is like going down in history as the game that caused me the most headache, that I hated the most. But Batman Arkham Asylum, I think is like the first game where I was like, I'm not just playing a Batman game, I am Batman. Like, that was such a good experience, that you could do the stealth, you could do the fight, and the way that they had the like reaction combat where like 20 guys would come at you and like you would just dance around them using the combat, and at the end they'd all be laid out and you didn't take a scratch, and like, and I remember doing that the first time and being like, whoa,
have you played
Batman?
Have you played the new Spider-Man game on PlayStation?
I haven't, but like, I think that is another one that's like that, but like the Batman one did it for me first.
Yeah. Oh, sure, absolutely. I'm just saying, if you haven't, you need to, because they modeled their combat. They were inspired by the Arkham series, and so a lot of their combat is very, but you're Spider-Man, so it's automatically better. That's my opinion, but but no, that's such a good game.
Yeah. So I guess that's our top 3, and we'll have to do this another time when we have Turrets on, or maybe get Hannah back on, because I'd love to hear what their installments would be.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll do something like that. I already know we got a couple people in the chat that are wanted. I want to mention a few of them. I know Hannah's number 1 video game of all time is Fallout New Vegas, right? And she mentioned that, so that's going to be her number 1. She loves that game to an unhealthy degree. It's almost a problem. I'm just kidding. But yeah, and just the whole Fallout series, she just really, really loves that whole series. We've got Fable was mentioned by Tim Arnold.
I love Fable 1.
They got him. It's really good. I didn't play Fable 1. I think I might have played a little bit.
The
Fable 2 is
one
what I
played. I just hated.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go back and do the lost chapters for Fable 1, but I just didn't get around to it. So yeah, that's a really good one.
But we got Super Smash Brothers in here as well.
Okay.
Hannah says, "I love Fallout more than I love you." That makes sense. I 100. If I ever made her choose
I
between
like Fallout more than you. I'm sorry.
if I ever had to make her choose between me and Fallout, it's like not even a question.
Didn't we already have that entire thing of not giving ultimatums?
We did, right, and it shouldn't ever be a question. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if it was like, if you play Fallout again, I'm gonna die, she would play Fallout.
Does she have a power suit?
She doesn't like. She hates the power suits. At least in Fallout 4, I don't know about the other but yeah, she doesn't like the power suits.
Okay.
All right. But there you go. All right, that's our favorite. That's our favorite video games. For now.
Let's get into the meat of the conversation.
We will. Real quick, I wanted to add. Sometimes we do news articles and stuff that are current. This is technically fits into that category, but I just wanted to talk really quickly about the storm that is going on in Iowa, or that happened in Iowa. If you guys don't know, that's where Tour Arts is from, and there was a very big storm. I think it had something to do with the hurricanes or something. That was it was just a really, really nasty storm system.
200-mile-per-hour winds.
Yeah, with
localized tornado.
By saying a storm is not doing it. It's a derecho is what they are technically called it. The type of storm that it is. But yeah, it's massive damage out there in Iowa. That's why Tour Arts hasn't been on the show. So those of you that listen to episode 0 and knows that one of our co-hosts hasn't been on one of the live shows yet, it's because she's been dealing with the aftermath of this. She still doesn't have power, along with almost 160,000 people, homes in Iowa that also don't have power. So just be thinking about that group. We're going to be talking about quarantine today as our main topic, and about coping with dealing with the COVID and quarantine and all that kind of stuff, and the things that go along with it. And in that note, there are just a bunch of people out there that still have to do that and don't have power and don't have access to some of these coping skills that we're able to access, because we can stay in contact because we have the internet and electricity. But if you don't, it's a much different story. So just kind of keep those folks in your thoughts. And Tour Arts, if you're listening to this on some magical non-electrical listening device,
no, she.
I know she has.
Tour Arts has left her home to a place with electricity. She just doesn't have internet right now. So
I see.
So she is safe. She is a lot more comfortable than she was initially.
Right.
So let's give that update so people are not worried that she is still in a house with no electric or anything.
And I know she has been. I've seen her on Twitter, and she's been talking to us here and there in our Discord using her phone and stuff like that. So that's good. That's good to hear. So, Tour Arts, you're in our thoughts. We can't wait to have you back. And just also everyone else out there, be safe. This sucks. I wish there was more that could be done. And whatever could be done, I hope it is. So there you go. But that's that. Related to our main topic today, which we're going to talk about quarantine and COVID, and primarily focus on what we can do, and how really what I found most interesting was there were so many articles about how gaming has been something that has really helped folks out during this time. Like folks that might not even normally have been avid gamers have discovered gaming as a way to pass the time and stay connected, and feel like you're part of a community when you can't leave your house. especially if you are, actually being quarantined because you've gotten sick or because you think you might be sick, um, or for whatever reason where you actually can't leave your house for public safety reasons, not even to go to the grocery store or anything, um, for a short time. It's been really cool. So I want to talk about that a little bit, um, and just start with talking, just in general, talking about a lot of the, um, just kind of some information that I found, uh, relating to COVID. So first of all, a lot of game companies, when all this started happening back in February and March, and April, took some steps to trying to help in their own way, which I thought was really cool. Blizzard, I think, was a really good example, and I know, Manny, you know a little bit about this. But Blizzard offered, first, an XP boost for anybody that wanted to level a new character. Right, so you got a free XP boost. It made it a lot easier and a lot faster to level characters up. Maybe you were bored with the game as it was now, but they're like, well, here's an incentive to keep playing with a different character, because maybe you want to try it with somebody else, or a different style of play. And that was originally only supposed to go until the end of April, and they ended up being like, no, we're just going to keep it until the new expansion comes out, because everything happened. But have you heard of any other games or game companies that did something like that to sort of give people
Yeah,
a reason to want to? Yeah,
it coincided with the 4-year anniversary, but Dead by Daylight had increased for their progression system,
cool.
um, where they were giving out points, and then they decided to just ramp up the amount of points they were giving to get people going in. They've also been shifting their company from work from home to get stuff going, and to keep the content flowing. We have seen in some homebrew things, like even games that have been like not readily supported, like obviously CSGO is supported, but like
Right.
1.6, we've seen more servers actually jump up in that game for people who are like playing 1.6, and the community is sort of like, well, I got time and this is a game I used to play and I can just play it, and that's been a big thing. Obviously there's not progression involved in CS matches, but just like the increase in servers and frequency. So a lot of engagement for all of these games have just shown up as people have wanted to play. And even going slightly outside of video games, one thing that I enjoy playing is Magic the Gathering. And there have been a bunch of people who are like, okay, let's set up Discord servers or something along those lines, use our webcams and play some like EDH or Commander as it's called now,
Yeah,
from the comforts of our homes, playing and showing people our board
dude, I wish
through that.
I wish I had Commander money.
It,
That's an
if
expensive
you
game
are
to play.
already in it, like, and you
I
have
know.
the decks, you can play. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's getting ridiculous. That might be a topic for another time. Is how expensive your hobbies might be now.
Yeah, especially tabletop gaming. Like, well, I mean, we ignore the fact that, a subscription service like World of Warcraft is $15 a month. Now,
Yeah, but
based
like,
on how much you play it, that's pennies. It's pennies a day, or an hour or whatever for me to play this video game that I spend an immense amount of time doing it. So I don't feel like it's money wasted. However, when you add up $15 a month for the last 15 years, on top of whatever merch that I've bought, on top of expansions, on top of BlizzCons that I've paid for, I've given that company probably more than I make in a year or two.
this is gonna be horrible for the audio crew. But you go on, you keep going. I'm gonna just quickly grab something.
Okay, Manny's going to show us how how much he's spent on all sorts of things. But yeah, it's just one of those things that it does get really expensive. But yeah, we'll definitely have to add that for a topic later. All right, he's back. What are you showing us?
Okay, these are just a few of my commander decks. There's about 5 decks in here.
Yeah,
About 100 cards in a deck.
100 card. Yep.
And so, like, some cards are worth a certain amount of money. Some cards are worth less. Some cards are worth more.
Yeah. Like on average, I feel like your basic card that's good might be like a quarter or something to be able to buy online or
Yeah,
something like that.
you could find some cheap cards.
A quarter to $1. How much is that one?
I'm gonna let you take a guess at it. Can you read that card?
I I can't read
You
it,
can't.
but I'm gonna.
It's a plateau, right?
Okay.
It's a single card. It's a plateau. How much do you think that card is?
I'm gonna guess $100.
Okay, we got somebody guessing $30 in chat.
Hannah's saying 30
Hannah's
bucks.
guessing 30. You're guessing 100. We're going to multiply your answers together to get closer to the real cost.
Did you actually spend what?
I
That's
luckily
3,000.
got that card not at $300,
Oh,
but
God.
that's a card where I'm just like, is this game worth it?
So those of you that might not know, I used to work at a boarding school for young men that had addiction issues. And one of the things that I kind of started when I got there that they really liked is we would go to Friday Night Magic at our local game store every week. So they all got into Magic. They were playing around the house, and we'd go to Friday Night Magic, and they'd get new cards, and they were able to get, their allowance to buy packs of cards or whatever. And so a bunch of them had their parents shipping cards from home. One kid had a card from home that he didn't want to use anymore that was worth like $200. And so he turned it in, and at this particular place, they weren't allowed to have cash money until they got to like a specific level because we didn't want them going out and purchasing things they shouldn't have. So he's like, he wanted the money, and I'm like, you can do store credit. So he got store credit and bought a bunch of cards, and then just like would go every week and buy energy drinks, which he really wasn't supposed to have anyway, but they sold them there, and I was like, I'm not going to fight with you. But yeah, it's crazy. A little off topic, but we'll definitely have a show about. I used to play a game called Star Wars X-Wing miniatures, and it's a miniature game, sort of like Warhammer, not necessarily nearly that expensive, but man, some of these hobbies get really expensive, especially gaming. But yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that existed as far as what we were talking about, as far as being able to. I'm going to have to talk to you outside of the show at some point, Manny, because I want to get. I've got my standard deck sitting here that I used to take to Friday Night Magic, just wasting away. And I'm pretty sure it's not even standard anymore because they came out with a new set recently. So, but I don't know. We'll figure it out. I would love to get into some more tabletop gaming in an area of COVID times. It's that was one thing that really affected me, since we're talking about this now, was that I couldn't go to my LGS local game store and play Magic, or they used to go and they would have these and this is something my therapist actually told me to do, because one of my I deal with depression, if you guys are unaware, but one of the things that helps, especially me being an extrovert, is getting out and spending time with people, getting out of my home and being around people, whether it's just going to the bar for no reason other than to have a drink and try to make a friend, or going to particularly those LGSs were really cool because I could show up, and whatever they were doing, I just asked if I could check it out, and they would teach me how to play these new games. But with that being gone, like my depression, all of a sudden that coping skill was gone. I could no longer. I could still get online and play online games, but that's a whole different kind of feel. I feel like. Do you have anything? Was it the same way with you in Magic? Is that sort of how you found this group?
Very much. Like, I quickly moved to find ways of still getting some sort of interaction with those people in those playgroups.
Right.
Honestly, right when we went into lockdown, it was a little tough. I was dealing with my contract being like prematurely canceled, because that's a reality for a lot of us, that we suddenly are not able to work, and worrying about bills and everything. And having this free time, and then it's like, okay, well, I can play World of Warcraft, but we were in a lull for the expansion. Trying to set goals and keep myself busy was a big thing. And then talking with my friends that I was playing Magic with and trying to find something that would work. We originally thought that, hey, this would be a short-term thing, um, but it's actually become a much longer thing. Luckily, the people that I have my play group with, that I was meeting every week, all had webcams, or at least were able to set up their camera phones along with their laptop to play. And so it was a quick transition for us. I was able to give instructions on like how to set up your camera and that, because it was stuff that I was already looking at, because I was going into content creation. It was something that I was already looking at, and so I was very lucky. A lot of people who like went out and were like, okay, I guess I'm gonna get a webcam and that sort of stuff. Webcam suddenly leaped in price right at the beginning of lockdown. It was like a C920 that I had gotten off of like Kijiji for like cheap was suddenly
Right.
like $200-$300 on Amazon.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got incredibly lucky, but
Wow.
a lot of the sort of hobbies and stuff I had actually looked into when we had a blackout several years back, and I was like, kind of need a hobby that doesn't require electricity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's similar to how I got into it. And for me, it was just I had some friends that were playing the X-wing game. A buddy of mine that was interested, and there was a place around here that played, and I'm like, okay, these aren't these. The actual pieces were maybe $15 to $30 for the stuff that you could get to make your fleet, right? And then you would use them to battle against each other. And I was like, I can afford this. This is fun. I can do this. Um, and it was, yeah, definitely something I'm pretty sure we played actually when we had a power outage at my house. I like brought my toys upstairs, and me and my mom and sister like played X-wings. Um, I was thinking about it. It was one of the first things that me and Hannah used to do when we first started dating. Is I was really into it and would go to travel to these different game stores that would have these different tournaments, within a couple hours of myself. And one of them was in her town. She'd lived not too far away from me, and I was like, and she met me there and like stood there all day watching me play. I don't know how she didn't break up with me at that point. It was incredibly boring, but we had a good time. But I really enjoyed that kind of stuff. Let me throw some numbers out at you, my dude.
Okay. All right,
So there was a report done by NPD, which is a marketing firm that sort of part of their job is to collect data on how much people are using products. According to the report, 3 out of 4 people in the United States play some amount of video games. This was a recent report done during the COVID time. So that's roughly 244 million people. And that's increased from 32 million in 2018. So in 2018, 32 million people said that they would play some type of video game, some amount, whether it's on your phone, solitaire on your computer, whatever it is. There were 32 million people in the United States that played video games. Now it's 244 million. That's insanity. In 2 years, it's jumped up that much. 3 out of 4
yeah.
people, 75% of Americans have spent some amount of time playing video games.
And it's not even the largest market.
Oh, no.
No,
No.
it's not. Like, video games is a medium. I know people want to derail it as just like a little pastime, but it is a medium. It is a fully functional medium.
Mm-hmm.
Narratives can be put through that. Emotional stories can be put through that. People can do it for just fun or catharsis or whatever. It is just as valid as going to the movies, which,
Right.
Sharku, going to the movies once a month with a friend is going to cost you more than a World of Warcraft subscription.
Well, if
Right?
you pay for your friend, it depends on what kind of theater you go to. But no, I feel you. I feel you. You're right. You're right.
I mean, you get the ticket, you get
The
yourself food. It
popcorn,
doesn't
right?
even matter if your friend is
Yeah,
being comped or
it's
not.
it's $30 before you realize it.
Yeah. Um, People who are going around and buying a book. Books are like if you're just grabbing like a book a month,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's going to run a decent amount depending on the book. I know like some books are incredibly expensive and some books are,
Relatively
like
cheap,
light
like
novels.
$6 or $7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who read comics, oh, Warhammer. I want to cry about Warhammer and how expensive that hobby is.
Oh yeah. Don't even get. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just another pastime. It's just another medium that people can use for whatever. And in a world where we are more and more isolated, and I don't want to say that this suddenly was a thing happening in COVID, but even in today's world, knowing your neighbor has become a little odd. Where I will talk to people and they'll be like, "Oh, you know that person? You know that person?" It's like, "Yeah, no, that's 303 or that's 306 or whatever." Right now I'm living in a house, so like I'm just throwing out numbers. Don't try and dox me, people. But in that case, right, knowing who your neighbors are and that sort of stuff has become increasingly rare. You are going to these pods of people that you know from something else, whether they are work friends, um, some activity friends where you've joined an activity group, and what COVID did was suddenly cut that tie,
Yeah.
and that's shocking for like everybody. So yeah, I even if it was like a very good amount prior to COVID, this opened people's eyes of like, well, how can I really like hear a human voice, um, and like be engaged in activity with my peers without risking infection or with maintaining social distance. And yeah, online activities have become the way to go.
Right.
We've gone from playing Catan, sitting around the table and having board game night and playing Catan, to
Mm-hmm.
playing Catan online on Steam, which is free. People go do that. That's a fun little way of
Wait.
doing
Stop. Is it really?
it. It's online, it's free, you can download it on Steam, and they had such a surge that they had to shut down the ability to play random games and just play with friends because they were overwhelmed at the beginning of lockdown.
That's incredible.
That is Catan's story.
Wow. Another story that I think is really cool as far as the things quarantine do. There was an article in the New York Times, which is one of the most popular news publications in the United States, that put out an article entitled "Animal Crossing is the Perfect Way to Spend Quarantine." Hannah actually helped me find this article, and it makes some really cool observations, I feel like, especially about this particular game. Quick side note, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this was because if there are folks out there that are struggling in quarantine, I want to kind of maybe throw some ideas out to you guys of things that you might be able to do to help fill your time, especially if you're struggling with depression and feeling lonely and feeling just ultimately bored, and going mad, cabin fever kind of stuff. There's only so many Netflix shows you can binge watch, right? So some of these are ideas of things that maybe you haven't tried yet. One of them is Animal Crossing, and honestly, if next time I have $60 that I can just spend on anything, I think I'm probably going to get this game. Hannah has it and has literally been playing this video game nonstop since she got it in March, maybe April. I'm not 100% sure, but it's been months, and she usually doesn't play video games for that long. She'll go for like a month or two for each game. She'll obsess about it. She's like, it's all Warcraft all the time. And then, okay, now moving on to The Sims. All right, now moving on to Fallout. And she kind of cycles these games and will play for like a month obsessively and then move on to another game. That's sort of her style. This game she's been playing. She's literally playing it right now. She's in the chat room listening to the show.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Half listening to the show.
And no, like honestly, it's on all day. Like I'll go hang out with her, and unless we're out doing something, she'll be at the house. We might be watching TV together, but she's got the game on and she's just doing whatever. She's, it's just something. It's almost like a friend that she has. It's always there. Have you played Animal Crossing at all?
So I haven't played Animal Crossing New Horizons, which
This is the new one, right? The
new
Switch
one
one
for the Switch.
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
played the
talking about.
original Animal Crossing. I gave it up because I felt that game was the biggest time sink I have ever encountered, and I'm a World of Warcraft player. I think that it is a perfect game for living in the middle of a pandemic. It allows you to do small little things if that's what you want to do, or take on big projects if that's what you want to do. There is no time frame, there is no set goal, there is no pressure for you to do anything. So in that way, you just get to unwind and just go wild and do whatever you want and get something achieved in whatever playtime you have.
I want to add this to it as well. And I have permission. Hannah and I have talked about me talking about her on the show, and she's like, "You're allowed to." So I just want to preface this with that. But Hannah has a real social anxiety issue. She really doesn't like being. She gets very, very nervous around people. Really, really anxious, especially people she doesn't know. And I'm sure that there are people out here listening to this that are that way. I've met tons of people to where it can be really difficult when you're playing online games with people because you get really anxious. You don't want to join a group, or you don't want to join a raid or something like this. With this game, somehow, some way, I remember just coming home and like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm trading in Animal Crossing." I'm like, "Oh, are you trading with your sister?" She's like, "No, some random guy I met on Discord." And I'm like, "What?" It was really cool that because of the way the game is set up, and this particular Discord community that she found, she felt safe and less anxious and able to kind of handle one of those other issues that she struggles with. And like, you know what? I'm going to get out of my shell a little bit today. And it was just kind of a weird, like, perfect combination of the way that this game is created to where you can meet with people. And she uses Discord, but there are other communities and all sorts of things out there.
Yeah, it's a very incredibly safe way to engage with people, because when you want to engage, you can open your gates. You give people a code. They come into your island. At any time, you can be like, "Okay, I'm shutting the gates. Like I've had my exposure. I've used up like my battery." Because sometimes, if you're like me, right, social engagements require a certain amount of energy, and you're not like able to just keep going. Eventually, a battery runs low, and you're like, "Okay, that's it for me for today." So in that way, you can just be like, "Okay, I'm closing my gates, everybody out, I'm going to go do my own thing." And it's 100% your call. You don't have to check with anybody. And that allows you to like sort of dip your toe in or dive into the deep end at your leisure and instantly be able to like turn it off.
All right, I'm out. That was good. I tried that. It was, well, it's something that's interesting in psychology. There's something called oh my God, what's the term that I'm thinking of here? I can't remember exactly the term, but the concept is that you make yourself a situation that you would be uncomfortable in and force yourself to be in that situation until you can't handle it anymore, and then you pull yourself out. And that way you're able to, like if it was somebody that had...
Is it immersion therapy?
Immersion therapy, thank you. Yep, that's what...
That's pure Hannah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But it's that concept of you immersing yourself in that situation that makes you uncomfortable. For example, if you have social anxiety and you hate going to the grocery store, right? You force yourself to go to the grocery store, maybe make a very small list of things you need to get, and then you walk around the grocery store Maybe even make some goals, give yourself little quests of things to do. Maybe you're going to ask an employee where a certain item is, right? Maybe you're going to small talk with the cashier or something like that, but only up until where you need to, and then you just pull yourself out. And that way you're out, you're safe, you feel safe, it's completely under your control, and you can look back and be like, wow, I did that and I didn't die. Right? It was uncomfortable, but I was able to accomplish it. And then the idea is that you will continue to do that until you can keep going. For example, I have phone anxiety. I hate talking to people on the phone or making phone calls. And something a therapist that I know mentioned in the same vein was like to call bars across America, like not near me, but to call bars and ask them what they have on tap. And just do that until you can't anymore. And then it's fine. Nobody knows it was, it's a reason for people to call, but it helps get over that, like, phobia, I guess, of picking up the phone and dialing a number and not knowing who's going to be on the other line. And I know that there are people listening that are the same way too. That terrifies me. I feel like phone phobia is more than, what public speaking was the biggest fear, I think, for a long time. I feel like now it's like phones, and I guess it's still kind of technically public speaking, but anyway, this game is really, really cool for that reasons and many others. It's set up to be just a real, like, leisurely thing. You can connect with people, you can play with your friends, you can play with strangers, you can meet new people. Hannah was saying in the chat she knows a little bit about it, but this particular Animal Crossing community just seems to be really, really nice. They always want to share, she's always trading something with somebody on this game. So it's a cool idea if you've not tried that yet and you've got the $60 to plop on it. And then I think the Nintendo online service is a little bit a month as well, but that'd be a cool idea. Cool. Well, Rich, we're just slogging through this discussion. we're getting ready to have to wrap it up, but we got so much more, so we'll try to get through some, and maybe we'll bring it up on another show as well, because there are a lot of topics we're talking about today that are definitely recurring. So yeah, that's just particularly talking about COVID. That's just a bunch of the things that I've learned in doing some research about this show that might be able to help you. Something else I want to mention. There are a few studies here that I have found that talks about how gaming can actually help. Like if you are in and this is just even outside of COVID, there are studies that say that you can use gaming to help with your anxiety. Something like what we were talking about with Animal Crossing is a good example. And something that just being, and being able to focus on something, pull yourself, it can even help with depression. And it's a coping mechanism I use for depression. But there are a lot of studies on that. I'm not necessarily going to get into those, but I wanted to make people aware that this is something that, like, legitimate social scientists and psychologists have looked into and are like, no, there are definitely signs here that there are ways in which you can use gaming to help with these certain mental health issues that you might be experiencing. Manny, you had something. I think I ran over you.
No, it was at the beginning of the show. I had said that I would relate to my current week and everything.
Yeah, I forgot about
that. Much like you're saying with like using video games, it's just the general way that like sometimes I deal with stuff and sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's not.
Right.
So basically, before we get into that, finish up your thought with the with like using video games in general with the psychologist say, and then I can explain sort of like my anecdotal experience of it.
Yeah, well, I just kind of wanted to give for today. I think we're going to get much more into depression and using video games to cope with that, maybe in a future episode. But if any of you all are interested, I can post some of these articles I found in the Discord, and that might, if you want, or you can always PM me. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say at this point. So, what do you got as far as your anecdotal use of video games to help get you through the quarantine?
Oh yeah. So of course we were talking earlier, setting up to play games with my friends, playing like Risk, where I would play that with people as a board game night,
Mm-hmm.
but that's also an online game, and I had mentioned Catan before, and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one of the things that I enjoy playing that we talked about early in the show it's World of Warcraft,
Yeah.
and so I like rating, setting goals for myself of like, okay, I'm gonna beat this tier. But COVID hit and the tier was over for me. We had already cleared it.
Right.
So how I deal with things is my way is that I like to compartmentalize. I like to make sure that I'm not allowing any one thing to absolutely define me. So like I can't meet up with my friends in real life. It's sad. Um I have had to suddenly come into what is now a long distance relationship even though we live in the same city,
Yeah.
and that was somewhat sad. So there was a number of things, and I already talked about my contract ending. So COVID left me unemployed,
Mm-hmm.
shifting into a long distance relationship that I had ended the previous relationship because I don't like long distance relationships,
Right.
and very much isolated. Um, and that is such a recipe for depression. What I ended up doing was saying, okay, well, like, what things can I work on? What things can I like are out of my hands? And World of Warcraft was something I could work on. I'm a content creator. I am trying to do more things, and that stuff came out of, well, let's take control of what I know I can take control of. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this new build for Shaman, and I did that, and that became like a goal and something I worked on, and I like did the mythic plus to get the right gear and all of that, and that was like, hey, this is something I could do, and I'm accomplishing that, and that helped me, even if it was a small thing. And then I took that and I built it into larger things. So I started streaming recently, and that's because hey, I've got all this time. Let's do that. And it wasn't just I'm going to stream. It was I'm going to build my own overlays. I'm going to learn how to use these programs that are used to even like make my transitions or make my layouts or make all this the stuff that's in there. I took on projects like Rested XP because so
Yeah.
much was going on in the world, and like what can I control? I can control the discussions that I have with that. So when you
Right.
came to me, right? That fit perfectly. Not only because I think it can help other people, but doing this show helps me.
Yeah.
Listening
That's.
to the people.
I was going to say secret behind me starting the show. That's exactly why I started it. I needed the show.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need this to happen, and I need people to help me with it. And but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Hearing from like the listeners and getting the stories that we've been getting, and like getting that human connection, that helps me. And so that was a great thing. um the work that I have been doing now with for Azeroth and with Warcraft Radio is stuff that like if I was still doing my contract job, I might have been too comfortable to like actually take that leap. But with maybe less to lose, or less things to divide my energy, I took that chance, and I've been building on that. So that has been a lot of what I've been doing to sort of push myself in this COVID area.
Yeah.
I did the COVID-19 in reverse, where I like lost the 20 pounds and was happy about that. Um, and it's just taking projects. So whether it's just like achievement hunting, starting a mount war with shoe boots so that like I have like somebody keeping me motivated to like
Mm-hmm.
get stuff done and be like, yes, this is something I've done. Losing to Bradley as the rating champion of Poindexter Furious, right? These are all the things where I get to engage with like a community, whether it's in person or online, that helps me feel connected, that helps me like have some sense of normalcy. I got
Mm-hmm.
to sit down recently with a content creator that I greatly admire. and just talk about Shadow Priest for no other reason than like I wanted to have that conversation. I heard it on their episode, and I got to do that.
Yeah.
That to me is a big accomplishment because like maybe a few months ago I would have never had the gumption to do it, or would have been too timid to do that. So like in that way, I get to build, and like that helps me. Like I said, this week has been a bit of a setback. Some
Yeah.
of the things that I was trying to move forward uh, have not moved in the way that I had anticipated. But
Yeah.
because I have those things compartmentalized, because I have like the big goals and the small goals and the medium goals,
Mm-hmm.
when one thing sort of falls out of place, it's not the entire picture that's ruined.
Right.
And that's what I think video games help you do. They give you the small goals or the easily accessible goals that you can build to like keep yourself moving, keep yourself motivated, or at least determined in the pandemic that we're in.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's an awesome way of looking at it too. Is like giving yourself these small tasks, quests, if you will, um, to be able to complete every day. So what I want to do to wrap us up is I had some other things I wanted to talk about, but I'm just going to kind of try to include them in this wrap up. But I want to sort of have just an advice section here at the end of the show. I know we've been talking about a lot of stuff, but maybe give our listeners some advice on different ways to be able to deal with the pandemic. Especially, we're assuming most of our listeners are gamers. The first one I want to start with would be to make sure that you allow yourself time to do other things, right? I know for me, and we'll probably talk about quote unquote gaming addiction at some point on this on the podcast, but I definitely have an addictive personality and could just constantly be gaming or doing something and allow it to take over my life. We don't necessarily want that, even if we don't have much going on because we don't have a job right now or we are quarantined or whatever. For your own mental health, you still want to try to make sure you can get outside. Just literally just sunlight and fresh air can be so beneficial to your mental health. So I've been trying to make sure that I can get outside a little bit, even just to walk outside and do something and just, be out there for a little while, to go to the grocery store or something like that, right? Get out of the house, get out of your room and just experience something outside. And you can ask Hannah, I really, really struggle. She suggests bringing your Switch outside. Like if you have a portable device or your phone, I play Hearthstone on my phone or TFT or something like that. And take that outside and just maybe even go to a park or something if you have places that are open and you can be safe and socially distanced and stuff like that. Just go out there. I'm lucky enough to live in the middle of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is the most beautiful mountain range in the world. Also one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. I think the second oldest. But anyway, I could just go up and find an overlook and just be sitting on the mountains. And if I have internet access, which sometimes isn't true, but I'll take a book or something out there. I've done that before. But yeah, getting outside, knowing when to cut off the game, when to spend some time with, especially if you're living with family, you want to make sure that you're spending time with them because that's super important. What else? What other advice you got? What's some advice you've got, Manny? Okay, I'll stop talking.
I want to build on what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
like going out for those walks helps. If you can't go as far, or you're just like crushed for time, something like just tending a garden. Like some
Mm-hmm.
people have like gardens that they want to set up. That's good. There was this entire baking craze. Like even if you're not going out, learning how to
Right.
bake some, it's like, oh, I've learned a new skill that can help fulfill you. Like I was saying that I'm learning these programs, that's about building my skill base. I'm also how many modules into Duolingo to like brush up on my French because I was watching Patrick Beja as a streamer, and he's like, "You can learn French, do this," and he gave me the link, and I've been doing that ever since and trying to learn French.
Right.
Take this opportunity. You have maybe an abundance of time that you didn't think you had that you didn't think you'd ever have. Go ahead and use that. Even if you're not racing outside, it's about going outside those boundaries that you already had. And I think that's a big thing. Um, Bringing your books outside is good. Duolingo can be accessed from a cell phone, so as long as you have like mobile internet, you could take your French lessons or whatever lessons outside. Um, Trying to draw, if you wanted to do that and just refine a craft that you had before. I think that the biggest thing is to find those silver linings, find those opportunities that this does present,
Yeah.
and trying to take advantage of that. And it's not too late to start today. It's not too late to start
Oh,
tomorrow. Just
yeah.
find it, because at the end of the day, it's something you start, and if you keep something going, and this is something I'm going to keep coming back to,
Right.
if you do something for 21 days, it's habit forming,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can keep moving with that. So push yourself for 21 days. When I was starting to work out, that first 21-day period, so that I wouldn't fall off. Boom. When I was trying to like learn to eat healthier, that's it. When I was trying to learn to do these French lessons, they have an entire thing where it's like, hey, here's your streak, keep it going,
Yeah.
because that's what's going to keep you going. Even when things otherwise change, you'll still be like, oh, I got to remember to do this. And that's the little momentum that'll keep you going. I know there's going to be good weeks and bad weeks. I'm currently dealing with what I consider a bad week, but I have the momentum from so much before that's going to push me through this, and this will pass, and I'll be in a good
Yeah.
week soon enough.
I had an amazing session with my therapist yesterday or Friday, and I know I'm going to sound weird here, but I have to talk about it a little bit because it's exactly what you're talking about. And when I said that this is something the reason we're talking about this is because this is something I'm struggling with. I literally, about an hour before the show, forced myself to continue and do the show today. I almost canceled it because I'm like, I'm just feeling too depressed to do the show. And I'm like, but the show's on depression. The show's on being depressed during quarantine and how to deal with it. But I was talking to my therapist, and he said, first of all, he said exactly the same thing. He said the first steps are the hardest. Not necessarily talking about being habit forming, but he's like, the first steps of anything are the hardest. That first time you work out is the hardest, and then it's a little bit easier the next time, but it keeps, if you're trying to get to a destination, let's say you're trying to walk from, I live in North Carolina, and I'm trying to walk from here to Los Angeles, California. Then when you start out, you're going to think there's no way I'll ever make it. And that's why those first steps are the hardest, because it's so long. But every step you take, you're a step closer to your destination, right? And eventually, were I to decide to walk along I-40 from here all the way across the country to California, I'd be able to do it. It'd take me a very long time. But at the end of that, I'd be like, I could have done it, which at the beginning, it seemed impossible. And so that idea of taking those first steps, he then, I have to add, started serenading me with I think it was a Grateful Dead song about the first days are the hardest or something like that. He literally started singing the Grateful Dead to me. My therapist is the goofiest hippie I've ever met in my life. I love him. But anyway, yeah, that's something I think is really important. And to add, or to kind of add to that, we were talking about, crud. I lost my other train of thought that I was going to talk about. It was something about sort of what you were saying as well. But, that we should enjoy every day. And I know it sounds silly, but, like, I get so depressed. I'm like, oh my God, COVID's going to be over soon. Oh my God, I'll have a job again that I like soon. I'll be able to finish, I'm trying to get a new master's degree, and it's going to take 3 years, but I guess that'll be over soon. And his advice was to have make the journey worthwhile. Like, not just be worried about that destination. Like, yeah, things are going to be great when you get there, but make that journey, even those first steps. Like, enjoy it. Like, there's no reason to sludge through it and to be like, oh my God, COVID's the worst. I can't wait till it's over. Yeah, it is. It does suck, but what can we do to enjoy it? Finding these little things, just thinking in that way has really helped me the past few days. Like, what can I do? I feel like crap right now. What can I do to enjoy my day? What can I do to turn this around? And trying to find those things. I just talked for a real long time, but
No,
yeah,
I think it's all meaningful, and like when I want to interject, I will. But
sure,
again, going through what you were just saying, um, that's part of why I do the 21-day thing.
right,
Like
yeah,
a lot of stuff is going to take you more than 21 days. But if you can like set like, okay, I'm going to get this installed in 21 days, that in itself is a project. And at the end of the 21 days, hey, I've gotten the start going,
yep,
right? That is a mini goal within a larger goal that I automatically list into pretty much everything. Is here's my startup project. Can I get the startup project together? And then from there, it's become habit. It's a maintenance thing. I'm happy,
yeah,
right? And that's just setting a smaller goal to make the larger goal more obtainable.
yep,
It's about giving yourself just like that celebration in a shorter period of time, less than a month. Can you do a 30-day challenge? Great, right? Once you've done your like 30-day challenge that's like drink this much water,
yeah,
keep running with it. You already stuck with it for 30 days.
yep.
Keep yourself hydrated.
Speaking
Which
of,
reminds me, I need to drink water.
speaking of running, have you ever, are you a long distance runner? Have you ever done that cross country, anything like that?
When I was much younger, I was part of track
I,
and field, like high school days.
okay, I had a buddy that one of my best friends who was a marathon runner, and I used to talk to him about it. He would like force me to go on runs with him sometimes. Like, I'm just going to do a short one. It's only 5 miles. I'm like, get out of here. But when I would talk to him about it, I'm like, how do you do it? I can't, like, I just thinking about a 5 mile run kills me. He's like, well, you don't think about the 5 mile run. You think about getting to the end of the block. That's your goal. You get to the end of the block, and then you look and you get another, like, okay, I'm just going to, he's like, especially when you're really hurting when you're doing it, he's like, I'm going to quit. And all I think is I'm going to quit. And I'm like, well, I'll quit. I'm going to get to that mailbox and then I can quit. And so he keeps running and gets to the mailbox and he sees something else, another 20 feet in front of him. Okay, I'm going to get to that tree. And after the tree, then I'll think about quitting. And that's that same concept. He's like, that's the only way anybody has ever completed a marathon. I don't know. Nobody looks at the marathon and is like, yeah, I can run that. No problem. It's,
I've made it this
24
far,
miles.
maybe I can make it a little bit further.
Right. It's that idea. It's like, I'm going to get to the end of the block, and then I'm going to get to this mailbox, and I'm going to get to that spot on the pavement, and then I'm going to get to this, and just going to turn this corner. Okay, well, now I'm going to get to that tree. And making yourself those short-term goals is something really good. I like to use the rule of threes a lot. Like, especially, I've been trying to quit smoking forever. But something that usually happens when I'm actually able to quit smoking for a while, like, okay, don't smoke a cigarette for 3 hours. All right, good job.
When I quit smoking, it was much the same.
Good job. Now don't smoke a cigarette for 3 days. And you get there. And that's the big hump, right? 3 days is the tough one. All right, you've done it. Now don't smoke a cigarette for 3 weeks. And you just kind of keep going with that. And then at that point, you're at the 21 days and you just keep going. 3 more days, 3 more weeks, making those small, short, little goals. Even when we're talking about addiction therapy, I worked with kids that were addicts that were dealing with addiction, substance abuse problems. You go to any 12-step group, like one of their biggest mottos, they say all the time, I think it's actually the motto, it's one day at a time. I'm not going to use today. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. But today I'm not going to drink, or today I'm not going to use. And I'm just going to get through today, one day at a time. And I'm going to wake up in the morning with no expectations, and then I'm going to say, today I'm not going to use. But you just worry about today, one day at a time. Don't worry about being sober for 20 years. every person I've ever met that has been able to maintain sobriety for a year or longer, whenever people ask how you did it, they always respond one day at a time. I did it a day at a time. I worked the steps, and I did it a day at a time. So
And
they
then you
can
find
relate
out
that to
you're
anything.
already halfway down the interstate, and it's only halfway to go.
Right. It's yeah, and like literally, I remember somebody's like, "I'm 15 years sober today," and I feel like I literally just woke up and I've been 15 years sober. Like it was, I know it was a lot of work, but sitting here now, it's like, but I did it. You know, I did it.
So
Because
anything else you want to throw
focus on
into
that.
the closing thoughts?
No, I think we need to probably wrap it up at that. One day at a time, little things, keep going. Please, folks, let us know if there's anything that you want us to be talking about. We'd love your ideas on topics. We have a few emails that have come in that we're going to be turning into shows very soon, TM. So check that out. But especially if you're struggling with something and you just want somebody to talk to or want somebody to listen to, or you want us to maybe talk about an issue that you're dealing with or that you've thought about, feel free to send us an email, restedxpcast@gmail.com. You can also DM us on Twitter or in the Discord, or even discuss with other listeners and fans in the Discord any issues that y'all might be dealing with. That's going to do it for us. Manny, do you have any announcements? Where can folks find you? What do you got going on in the next week or two?
Okay, well, if you want to find anything that I do, best thing to do is to follow me on Twitter. That is True Villain Manny, true without the E. You can also find me at my Twitch channel, also True Villain Manny without the E. And for most of my shows, including for Azeroth and my new start as one of the rotating hosts of the Rolling Restart, head over to warcraftradio.com.
Awesome.
Boop.
Yeah. Check this guy out. He does some cool stuff every now and again. Sometimes even co-hosts on my show, my other show, which is Merely a Setback. It's a podcast about storytelling and lore in World of Warcraft. You can check that out. Setbackpodcast.com has all the information and where to find us over there. You can also find me, Sharku_CTR on Twitter. That's going to about do it. Before we get out of here, I want to mention that we do have a Patreon page. Podcast costs money, and right now, we don't have any of it.
Actually, I'm going to correct you. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank our first patron. That is Tim Arnold Allen, who is supporting this show. I honestly, guys, I did not expect us to get patrons this quickly. It is a new show. We do want to make sure that we are giving you quality in return for like any support. So to get that support so quickly is really precious. Thank you so much. And if we get more, again, we're going to reinvest that into this show and make sure that it is the best, most welcoming community that we can make.
I was going to get to Tim. I wasn't going to run over. Thank you for doing that, though. But yeah, Tim, thanks so much. We would love to be able to announce your name on the show. So please consider giving us a small donation, and check that out at patreon.com/restedxpcast. All right. That's going to do it. Until next time, folks, be good to one another.
Sharku, you're wrong, and that's okay.
You can't say that after I say be good to one another.